your boy, Smoothvega. I gotta say what's up to my boy, Smoothvega. You tuned into the Smoothvega podcast. Smoothvega podcast. It's the podcast, bitches. Podcast.
All right, man, we're back in the cut like hydrogen peroxide. It's been a long time coming, man. First and foremost, I want to give a big shout out to XR214 Studios, my man Molek. You know, these guys work extremely hard to really put this together. They have a beautiful facility here in Dallas, Texas, and I'm excited to be back doing what I love to do. Another season, we're loaded up. Before I go any further, though, you know, this episode right here is brought to you by D.O.C, cares.org. That's doccares.org. Y'all do me a favor, y'all go down to that website right now, drop a donation, it'll mean a lot. Let's empower the future, you know what I'm saying? Now, that being said, oh man, I'm telling you right now, it has been a long time coming. This conversation that I'm about to have is a conversation I've been wanting to have for such a long time. Look, you know, there's always conversations that go on, you know, in the barbershops locally, you know, where we're from right here in Dallas-Fort Worth. I'm an 817 boy, you know what I'm saying? So they'll talk Mount Rushmore, they'll talk about the greats, they'll talk about who's the best to ever do it. And to me, it starts and ends here, right here with the man that I'm about to introduce. Look, man, this is what drives me crazy, man. What drives me crazy is whenever you hear people talk about what if this wouldn't have happened. He would have been one of the greats. No, I'm tired of hearing that. That stops right now. He is one of the greatest to ever do it, just not on the artist side, but also as a songwriter, as a producer, as a talent scout, as a A&R, just one of the greatest songwriters to ever do it. He is, in my opinion, a forefather for gangster rap music, hip hop culture in general. Would look a lot different without the contribution of my following guest. With that being said, I want to welcome one of the greatest to ever do it, the one, the only, the D.O.C. Welcome to the Smoothvega podcast, man. Thank you so much for joining me, man.
Oh, man, it's a blessing, man. I appreciate you asking me to come by.
Man, it's an honor. It's an honor. And look, you know, I mentioned right now, you know, a forefather, an architect, you know, in West Coast hip hop, 90s gangster rap, you know, just kind of playing a big part in that whole sound. And I always find it interesting that you are at the centerpiece of that, and you're from Dallas, Texas, right? Fast forward 2026, I gotta ask you, 6WA, Big X the plug, full circle, Dallas, Texas is bringing that sound back to the forefront. What are your thoughts about what them boys are doing right now? 6WA, Big X the plug, Rosama, the whole gang over there.
Bro, I love everybody. I'm on his record.
I know, track 2.
Yeah. He reached out and asked me to spit on it for him, and I wanted to do it because I want him to win. You know, Dallas-Fort Worth has been a long time coming for us to kind of break through in that space, and it's time.
You know, I had seen a previous interview that you had did, and you had mentioned that 2026, the World Cup is coming to Dallas-Fort Worth, but you also mentioned in that specific conversation that in 2026, something's gonna shake, and Dallas-Fort Worth is gonna go to the forefront, and you're gonna play a part in it. So when I heard the 6WA album, and I heard the sound, and it just really embodied a sound that, you know, you played a big part in shaping. I was moved by it. I was like, yo, this is not only dope, but it's just incredible to kind of see the genesis of where it started to where it's at now, and to have these guys from Dallas, Texas bring that sound back. I mean.
Yeah, like I said, you know, I'm grateful to have played my role in it. And it feels good that the young men are, you know, they are accepting of that energy and want to put it back out there in the world. It's not exactly where I am at the moment,
yeah,
you know, musically or, you know, in my philosophy. But I want us to win. And so whatever you got to do to win, I'm with that.
You know, I mentioned at the beginning of this conversation, or in the introduction, actually, you know, I mentioned that there's always this like what if? Like, what if this wouldn't have happened? You know, D.O.C. would have been one of the greatest. And in my opinion, you are one of the greatest. There's no what ifs. But when we think about Dallas-Fort Worth and we think about the what ifs, there's a lot of people that have had talent that may have not, you know, past a certain point. And I'm in the belief that Dallas-Fort Worth is home to some of the most talented individuals.
No question.
In the world, if not
You said
the world.
Dallas-Fort Worth, right?
Dallas-Fort Worth, man.
Yes,
I'm from the
sir.
817. I'm from
Okay.
Fort Worth, so you already know where I'm going with this.
Yeah.
There's a gentleman from Fort Worth who I shared the cover with on the Fort Worth Weekly back in 2011. He's someone that my man Malek's been wanting to produce for. He's someone I've done music with. And he was featured on the Chronic 2001. You know who I'm going with when I say the following name, Six Deuce, man. Six Deuce is one of the dopest. And I feel like as time has, you know, passed, people don't remember his contribution. But I wanted to ask you about Six Deuce because I've heard you actually mention him as someone that's in the top 5 ever in Texas in your book.
No question. 6'2" is he's one of the best guys. I'm talking about rapping. You know what I'm talking about? I don't know what these other people use as criteria, but I'm talking about rapping. You know what I mean? 6'2" and the way that he did what he did and does what he does, it's just far and beyond most of these young guys. It really is, you know. And he's an older guy now. We old now. But I always tell folks if B.B. King would have made a rap record, it would have been 6'2's record.
Wow.
You know, he's just got that soul in him. Like it's hard to replicate.
You know, whenever I think about 6'2", and I think about your contribution being from Dallas, and by the way, I appreciate you emphasizing Dallas-Fort Worth because this is a metropolitan area, and you can't have one without the other.
Can't do it.
I used to tell my old engineer back in the day, I was like, yo, man, Fort Worth is like Jersey to New York. We're the city across the bridge, you know? But,
That's right.
But we're together. We're together. And I've always found it, you know, I've always found it very dope that you've always, you know, found a way to bring Dallas-Fort Worth wherever you went with you. You know, obviously, I'm sure you played a big part in having 6 Deuce go out there to California, bring him to Dre and everybody over there.
All those guys. It was Erotic D and Miss Allen, you know, 20 years before that.
Yeah.
It's just wherever it was a young guy from Garland before 6'2", a young white kid. I forget the guy's name. But whoever, if you come to me and you get in my face and you talented and I see it and I hear it, I'm gonna try to make a plug for you. That's just my nature.
Yeah, and I mean, you've done it with several people. You had Justice, you know.
That's Justice. That's what I'm talking about.
You had Justice out here. You also had there's a handful of people, you know, and there's so many people. You know, I always wanted to know before I go any further. I think at one point there was even I heard around the way that Uptight had something working out with Dre or something and it just didn't work out. What happened with Uptight? That situation.
You know, it's hard to say. In mixed company. But it just didn't work out. Sort of a difference in opinions. And one guy thought it should be this way, the other guy thought it should be that way. And the friction led to it just being hard for those guys to work together.
Bringing it back to 6'2" real quick before we go into the history of D.O.C. and all the great things that you've done. I've gotten a chance to know 6'2", and when we talk about the what ifs, right? You know, listen, man, I grew up in the 90s, right? So my favorite basketball player growing up was Penny Hardaway. And, you know, and when you talk about what ifs,
man,
you know, that's one of those, right? Where injuries plagued him. You've used an analogy before. It's like, hey, man, Jordan blowing out his knee before he gets to actually, you know, have his run. I feel like 6'2" is a cautionary tale, as much as I have respect for him on a talent level of what could have been and some of the decision-making that could have been different.
Sure.
You know, and he's been open about it. You know, he's been open about it.
6'2", and I share that part of our story. You know, both of us were both of us are cautionary tales in that respect. And both of us are tales of resilience and making it through that and building on that past. Because 6'2" is making new music now.
Yeah.
And his new music sound dope. And it's not what you think.
Yeah.
You know, and his ideas and my ideas are a lot alike. I'm making new music now. And it's not what you think. You know, in fact, I wouldn't be surprised if you got new music this year.
Oh man, I can't wait.
From D.O.C. and it's gonna be really good. I had to get over this voice thing, you know, feeling less than because of it, or what people are gonna think because of it, you know. But the new music sounds so damn good. I'm like, forget it, you know. It's time to go.
Man, you you got to give yourself some credit though, man, because I heard the record with Dre and Eminem, Gospel, and you were on the record. You know, I heard you on the hook. I want to say you were on the hook on that one, and I was like, I think you sound dope as fuck. You know what I mean? Like, I think it sounds great. So, I don't know where musically you're gonna go, but hey, man, I can't wait to hear it. I cannot wait to hear it.
I tell you what. Speaking of X and his guys. This new record, the new music I'm making sounds like is if NWA made a gospel record.
Wow.
That's what it sounds like. That's what it feels like. Feel like we want to praise the Lord. God damn it.
So, you know, let's dig into the history. Your story is well documented. You know, I mentioned at the top of the intro that, you know, you really cultivated a sound, and you know, you were a big part of everything that happened over there on the West Coast with NWA, Dr. Dre, Eazy-E, Ice Cube, Snoop Dogg, MC Ren, Death Row Records, all of that, you know, Ruthless Records. And just, I mean, it kind of goes without saying, obviously you take a lot of pride in your work and what you've been able to contribute. But looking back now, all these years later, like how does it feel to be such a part of such a, I mean, I don't even know how to word that. That's not just history, it's the culture.
You know what? It's a blessing. All I can say is I'm grateful and thankful. You know what I mean? I had to separate myself from what I would think as a human being, and then how I understand things now.
Yeah.
You know, things happen for a purpose, and there's a reason why I'm not standing on top of that mountain, because I should have been, could have been, would have been.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? All you gotta do is do the history of the music, what it sounded like before I got there and after I got there.
Yeah.
The trajectory of where it went after I got there, the moves that was made once I got there, you know, and then X and those guys regurgitating that feeling almost 40 years later, you know.
And, you know, and I was hearing Osama, you know, channel that kind of inner Eazy-E, and I just kind of go back to that era of music that, I mean, that's how I fell in love with hip hop music, was that, you know, that whole era, the West Coast hip hop. And for me, like, what you guys embodied on so many levels was unique, it was different, it was special. Specifically talking about Eazy-E, and I mean, it's been well documented, you know, he wasn't necessarily the most naturally talented guy when it comes to rapping.
No, he was not. but he had something super special. Today's the 25th. This is his anniversary today.
Oh wow, it is.
He passed on this day.
Yeah, 95, right?
Yeah.
Damn.
But he had something very special about him that made him great. You know, his confidence was over the moon, you know, and when you're talking about Cube, Rain, and myself, during that space and time, he had three of the best writers kind of on the coast in his stable, putting the work in for him. And Dr. Dre, that goes without saying. So, you know, he was in a great position to win.
You know, and when we talk about Eazy-E, because, you know, I'm really big on scouting talent, sizing up talent. I feel like what E had, and maybe you can attest to this, I'm sure, he just had that one thing that you just can't teach. He had the cool factor. He was just cool, man.
As hell.
He was just cool. You just wanted to be like him. He just sounded cool. He had charisma that you just can't teach.
Yeah.
And I think when you talk about star power is someone that pops out on the screen, someone that just has a presence that no matter what you do, no matter where you go, you just can't teach that factor.
That's right.
And that's what Eazy had.
That's right. No question about it.
You know, and I think having you guys coming together, see, because you know, obviously it's 2026, and I feel like early on with hip hop, it was kind of frowned upon whenever people would think of people writing your raps and writing your music, because you know, coming up, the culture was very like competitive. You know, like it's coming from me. I'm stating my claim. I'm the best MC. But I feel that, you know, when we talk about songwriting, which is something that I mentioned at the beginning of the episode, you're one of the most prolific songwriters ever. And in my opinion, I've never looked at or listened to an Eazy-E track or a Dr. J track or even a Snoop track that you had a hand in writing and looked at it different. Like, oh man, this is taboo to like this song because there was writers involved. But I mean, back then, I kind of felt like it was viewed that way. But for you guys creating, I don't think that it ever crossed y'all's mind, but like, what are your thoughts on that kind of songwriting and not being viewed as a ghostwriter, right? Like, you are a songwriter and you compose music. I feel like it almost discredits what you actually do in the grand scheme of everything, you know?
I don't know if I agree with that 1,000%. There is validity in some of it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, but shit, I just want to win. I don't care who shoot the shot, as long as it go in. You know what I mean? If I was doing a record and you gave me a rap and it was dope, I'm gonna spit it. You know? And Eazy couldn't do it, and Dre didn't do it as well. And so it was people around that did it better. So might as well let those folks eat.
Whenever you got over there, obviously, the story goes as follows, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but you were out here in Dallas. You were running with your rap crew. And I believe Dre had somebody that he was, you know, exchanging, like bartering production for radio players, something along those lines, right?
Well, something like that. It was Dr. Rock used to be on the radio here in the mid 80s, and Rock was. This is before rap was, you know, they really played rap, and so people like Dr. Rock and Snake and Big Al and those guys had local shows on Fridays or Saturday nights, and they would play all these records. And because Rock was on 104, he had a reach, and he's from LA, you know, so he played all those guys' records, early World Class and NWA and, you know, JJ Fad, and all of those records made money for those guys. And so he started bringing them down here to do shows at the skating ring on weekends. And that's how I met those guys. That's how I met Dre. He said, "You really good, bro. If you was in California, we'd be rich." And at first I told him no, because, you know, I don't know nobody in LA. He didn't want the whole group to come. He just wanted me to come. Now that was a fork in the road, because if the whole group would have came, maybe some of the choices I made would have been different.
Yeah.
But they didn't want the whole group. They wanted me. I said no. About 6 months later, I dropped out of high school. My mother said, "You're going to the Army." I had Dr. Dre's number. I didn't want to go to the Army. So I called Dre, said, does that offer still stand? He was like, yeah. So I hustled some money, got on the bird and left.
So when you went out there, obviously you went out there as an artist, as an MC. But whenever you first start working with the guys out there and you start kind of, figuring out how you're gonna insert yourself into their ecosystem, was it planned for you to kind of come in and write, assist on that side? Because you mentioned, hey, I just want to win. I'm just trying to get in where I fit in and take the team to the championship.
Yeah, that's what they brought me out there for.
So was it ever like something that you thought of prior to that? Like, because essentially, as a songwriter, and correct me if I'm wrong, but as a songwriter, you kind of play the role of a player coach almost, like because you're still an MC, but you're now coaching people on how to be better at delivery, at cadences, at all the things that entail having a complete song and a complete verse or whatnot. How did you adjust to that role whenever you first got there? Or was it just seamless?
Yeah, it was seamless. That's what I do. That's what I still do.
Yeah.
I'm good at helping guys if they'll accept it. Not everybody wants your help. Some guys think I got it already.
Yeah.
There you go. But they knew it. Easy knew why I was coming. None of those other guys needed help. It was really just Dre and Snoop. Dre and
Easy.
And Eric, who needed help. Cube was already Cube.
Yeah.
Ren was already Ren. So it was Easy that needed the development. And me and Cube and Ren, you talking about 3 totally different style sets, but everybody's style set is really good.
Yeah.
And so, man, you got flawless records. And that's when we started building. And then they went from, I got a fat girl on my jock to We Want Easy.
Yeah.
They went from something to dance to fuck the police.
Yeah.
Just the motif of the music changed because you had more guys with something to say.
Did you know, or let me ask you real quick, during the time that you're working with the guys, was everybody receptive? Was everybody like fairly coachable? Like,
Yeah. Well, I didn't have to coach Cube or Ran. We was battling.
Yeah. Well, I meant, obviously the people that you're writing for, because I believe that just in general, when it comes to songwriting and also in the music industry, like you mentioned, some guys think they already have all the answers. And I believe that this goes in all genres, but specifically in hip hop, like a lot of artists just aren't produced.
Mm-hmm.
They're not produced, they're not being directed, they're self-producing, self-directing themselves. And not to say that they can't yield, good results, but there's only so far you could take yourself. Collaboration is key. And I feel like, hearing you speak on that, it's just a reminder of, you're mentioning a triangle offense of MC Ren, Ice Cube, D.O.C. And you guys are building a dynasty. But as you're writing these records and as you're creating these records, did you know instantly, like, oh man, this is about to change everything?
Oh yeah.
What was that moment that you just knew, like pen to paper or after the demo, the recording, like that you knew like this is about to be?
I knew before I went there. Because I knew me. I was the best I had ever heard. I was the best I had ever heard. And I wasn't competing with
nobody.
Dallas guys at that time, because Dallas didn't exist. I was competing with New York guys because that was the only thing that existed at that time. That's why I'm more of an East Coast MC.
Yeah, for sure.
That's from the South than anything else, because the South never got a chance to develop me. It didn't exist.
Yeah, and so and I see people point that out often, like, Rakim is someone that obviously you had a lot of respect for, someone that you looked at as like a standard.
Absolutely, he was the standard.
It's like, it kind of reminds me of like when you hear the ball players that they see the stat sheets and they're like, how much did he score? All right, I got to top that.
That's right, brother.
You know what I'm saying?
That's right. He was the one. Well, before him, it was Cool J. But before Cool J was Run, but once Rakim came, he kind of switched he changed what was possible in cadence for most of us,
And he did it without curse words.
Yeah.
And it's something that, I when I do my research and I look at your videos on YouTube and I'm doing my deep dive, just going down the rabbit hole and listening to some of your records, you didn't really curse a lot on your records either.
No.
And is that something you did, like intentionally, or was it?
Yeah, because it wasn't in old school New York MCing, you didn't do that. The NWA guys brought that in and everybody flipped out. Oh my God, they cussing on the record.
Yeah.
But that ain't what made it dope, to me. It was just a gimmick,
Yeah.
but, people liked it. And who am I to say it's not dope? So let me work with what y'all want to work with. But when it's my turn, then let me show you how I do it.
Do you feel like curse words in rap music at that time were almost like filler words? Because, like as an MC and when you're like putting together like a full verse, right? And you're really just like attacking lyricism. Sometimes like a cuss word could just be a filler word that carries over to the next line.
Sure, absolutely.
So I feel like did you feel like you were challenging yourself, or like, hey, if I'm really gonna show out and show that I'm the best, I'm gonna show that I don't need that to lean on.
No, because I didn't. Man, you talking about supreme confidence. Being in LA by myself, around all of these boys, talking shit every day.
Yeah.
Cause I thought I was better than everybody. So we get to drinking that all, and you know how them Texas boys get.
Yeah.
The Texas boys, when they get full of that all, they gonna talk that talk. And I know they used to get tired of me, but I thought it was just all in fun, But I was just being me.
And you've mentioned that during that time you're playing your role, you're contributing, you're seeing the success, you're getting that respect and that reverence amongst your peers. That it was very much you were just waiting your turn as well. You're on the bench. You're just like waiting to get caught up. What was that call whenever that, what did it feel like whenever you did get caught up and you finally got an opportunity to put out your album and now you're having your run as far as
I never completely stepped into it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? The record came out and everybody's starting to understand New York. I hear this from New Yorkers all the time. It's very hard to break through in New York City, especially at that time. They didn't immediately welcome Easy or NWA or Too Short or the South guys, anybody that wasn't from New York. But they said when my record came out, it was like a sonic boom hit in New York City. Busta Rhymes told me that guys was like, I'm not getting on the record with that dude, and so I had proved my point to the people I was trying to prove it to, because it was really the guys in New York City I was aiming at. But being blessed enough to learn from those dudes on the West Coast added so much to my game that I didn't have before I went out there. And the ultimate was being able to rap on top of Dre's stuff. Like it's hard to lose like that.
You mentioned Dre and comparing him to Quincy Jones. Say he's the Quincy Jones of our generation, right? Man, just that relationship that you formed with him and just kind of seeing all the things that he's done. Did you know all along, like, this guy's one of one. He's gonna be able to do all the great things that he's done in his career?
I like to tell Dre. I like to tell people I knew who Dre was before he did, and it's true. I knew who Dre was in Dallas before I met Dre. Because his stuff sounded different. I thought for a long time it was my voice, but it's really my ears that I could hear that this is something different about this dude's production, you know. And when I found out later, after working with Dre, because back then, you go in the studio, you make a record, and the famous words that people always would say back then was, once you get it mixed and mastered, it's really going,
Yeah.
dot, right? But when you work with Dre in the studio that day, that's it. How that shit is laid out right then, that's it. That's what you're gonna get. When it's good, when it comes to mastering, when it's mixed, it's gonna be a version of that you're listening to. It's not gonna go up no more levels. That's it. That means this dude is so good, he really doesn't need to be mixed and mastered.
Oh, wow.
You know, he's that good. And, you know, I got tons of respect for that guy's skill set and his ideas that he brings. You know, I'm blessed to be able to work with that dude.
You mentioned also before that you played a big part in him going solo and becoming an artist and doing the Chronic and just everything with that. Like, I'm sure there was a lot of moments, I mean, in this line of work, like any other line of work in any other profession, where there was a lot of situations that were disheartening and discouraging. And I'm sure you guys lifted up each other plenty of times in y'all's lives, you know? And what did that look like to kind of, you know, essentially play that role and like, hey man, you gotta do this album, or you gotta do this on your own, or like, you know, was he struggling with self-belief, confidence, or was it just something that, you know, I'm just kind of curious. I was kind of...
Yeah, he didn't believe in, never has, probably does now. But he didn't see himself as a rapper. He never thought he had the voice for it. But during that time, we were trying to separate ourselves from Easy. We saw that the business wasn't right, and I had lost my voice, so I couldn't do it. So you got to do it. You know, it's really nobody else. That was right before we met Snoop. You know, and so when Snoop came, that settled everything. But it was stuck in Dre's mind. After I lost my voice, we figured out it wasn't coming back. That was it for me. You know, like, you should never rap again. I think what he said was, they think you the king right now. You should go out like that. And that was just never, I could never settle on that.
Yeah.
That never, I still can't, you know. And I had to go through, and Dre is the one voice I trust the most, you know, because he has no reason. He's not the kind of guy that's going to blow no smoke. He gonna give it to you raw. And so I had to sit with that and deal with that for a long time. And when I released Helter Skelter, it was only because I couldn't get those guys to spend any time figuring out something for me, you know. I put all this time and energy and money and effort into helping build you, and now you're soaring. What about me? You know, and nobody could figure that lane out. So I took his shit, and meaning is the title to his record and one of his beats, and did it on my own. Now to this day, Helter Skelter, some folks love that record. It didn't do very well commercially, but I was in a space, and I was doing so much drugs and alcohol back then, you know, I wouldn't have known it if it was doing well, you know, because I was trying to fight that pain, work through that, you know, not having my voice anymore, not being who I thought I was, the what if,
Yeah.
You know, I had to fight through that shit. And to have to do that shit alone. They talk about mental illness
Yeah.
these days being so important. Like, man, look, you talking about 10, 15 years of real struggle that I had to go through by myself. You know, those guys couldn't understand that they on a different path than me. And so I respect what we did together. I respect them as men, as artists. But if it was me, I wouldn't have let my guy be out there like that. I would have did more for my guy. You know what I mean? But it's not a D.O.C. thing or a D.R.E. thing. It's a G.O.D. thing.
Absolutely.
That means the boy had to walk his path to figure out who he was and what he's supposed to be doing. And today, now I understand. You know, like, I wouldn't give a fuck what none of these guys say. I'm finna make this record because I know it sound good.
Yeah, I think, you know, that obviously you went through your depression. You know, I'm sure it was, you know, because that's a life-changing situation. And I only ask because, you know, as you're contributing, you know, to everybody's, you know, career, and like you mentioned, everybody's up, and you've hit a point where, like, damn, like, what about me, right? What about me? Like, I'm supposed to be running the court with you guys, and I'm supposed to be putting up 30 a night. I'm the best player, and I'm not playing.
That's it. The best player coach, right? You guys ain't even in the right position. Right now, you're winning because the offense is great. But no, it was really difficult. And this is a new conversation. You said, I'm gonna ask you something about that. See, I don't usually go this route with it, but it's time to start having these kind of conversations because it's real. You know, I had to make it through that. And I made it through it today. Do I have any animosity towards my guys? None. I love my guys, and that they are 100 millionaire and billionaire, you know. Now, I still got a long way to go to find that space. But I don't think I'm not gonna get there, you know. And I don't look to nobody else to help me because I understand it's a G.O.D. thing. And so when it comes, it won't be because anybody did it but him.
Well, I asked too because, you know, when we look at you know, when Snoop started having a success, you know, there has to be that part of you that is looking at that run, feeling like that's really your run to a degree. But there's also this part that starts, you know, you have to also understand, like, you molded him as well.
That's my guy.
You know, and he's an offspring in a lot of ways. Yeah, you know, he came to you, but you molded him, you shaped him, you shaped the Doggy Style project, and through your contributions, and, you know, of course, he has charisma, he has star power, he has all the things that you could check all those things off. But the foundational work, that's D.O.C. right there.
No, I received that, you know, but I want to say that I just helped him see who he was. It was already there, you know. A lot of the anal sort of, when it comes to the actual writing, songwriting, I'm there in that part. Because those guys will just freestyle about anything and think that's it, you know. That's not it.
60 more verses.
Oh my God. But I was allowed to win. I couldn't do it. I can't be the GOAT. Now, Snoop, you gonna be the GOAT. And so when as he was turning into the GOAT, you're right. It was me through him.
Yeah.
And so I enjoyed that success for my guy. I still do. Love it. Him being the dog father, you know. I enjoy his win. And love my guys. I love them. Warren G, Corrupt the Kingpin, Daz, Nate Dogg, The Lady of Rage, Jewels, RBX, all of those people Dr. Dre, Chris the Glove, all of those people came together as a family and really spent some long hours coming up with some shit that was really dope. And you can't take that away from none of us.
Yeah, and I say that to say because obviously, like, his win, your win, vice versa, right? These guys have always given you credit, though.
Yeah.
Yeah,
especially the dog.
And he's always said it.
Yeah,
He's
yeah.
always said it. And I think that's where it's like, going back to that era and that time of your life, you're coming out of like just a life-altering situation. There has to be that sense of like, man, I knew I was the baddest motherfucker though. Still am. I knew
Still know it.
He's like, I knew it, I know it, but then especially it's like, yo, I know what I do is different. It's unique. I bring something rare to the world, and to be able to pass that over and take that knowledge and share it with the young gun like Snoop at the time and change his life, change his career completely. Man, dude, that's almost like indescribable because, sometimes when you and you mentioned, you're like, I went into the meat and potatoes of the writing. I went to the depths of the writing, but I really just helped him see who he was. That's what coaching is. That is coaching right there. And to be able to do it at such a high level while you're not mentally fully functioning. Like, do you understand how great that is? Like, it's like you're not even operating at 100% mentally because you're going through this, depression. You're coming out of this fucking traumatic experience, and you're still putting up, 40, 50 on the board. You know what I mean?
Bro, I told you, I just want to win. I wanted to win because that's the only way I could get out of that. When it first happened, I thought the only way I could get out of that pain was a win because I couldn't escape it. When I got up in the morning and looked in the mirror, I could see the scars on my face. When I opened my mouth and started talking, I could hear it. I couldn't get away from it. But when those guys start doing that, it just felt great. Now, when they got so high and didn't pull me up, it started to feel bad, And then the more that kind of thing happened, started to feel worse, and then it didn't feel as good,
Yeah.
But this is a part of life that you have to go through, that you have to learn these things, that as a man, you really have to stand on your own in this world, because you came in this bitch by yourself. That's how you're gonna leave out, and you said something earlier about Mount Rushmore, and everybody's got their numbers, and a lot of people feel like you feel when it comes to D.O.C., and I hear it and see it all the time, but I never consider myself in those commentaries because none of these motherfuckers have went through what I had to go through. In order to even be in my class, you would have to first be in the game for 40 plus years. Then you would have had to lose your voice after your first record and still make classic records. And after this year, you'd have to have made a brand new record with that new raggedy voice and still do it again. Now when you find somebody that could do that, we can have a versus.
But I mean, yeah, so it's like, and I wasn't even gonna mention the accident, just because I feel like you've spoken about it so much, and I tried to like be mindful, because I know that's part of your story, obviously, but it's also something that is traumatic, like I mentioned. So just kind of moving along, and something that spoke to me that you said right now was that when they were going up, it felt good, right? Because it felt good because at that point you're probably looking for something to feel good about.
That's right.
Right, so it's like, but it helped that these guys are having commercial success. They're changing the industry. They're changing the world through what they're doing, and you're playing a big part in that. And then as they got here and here and here, and the altitude starts going higher and higher. It's like, hey, I'm right here. You're starting to forget about me, or you're starting to feel forgotten maybe, and maybe that plays a big part in, just kind of how we where we start changing our mindset and our thoughts, because I'm pretty sure nobody really prepared, because these guys went into uncharted territories.
Right.
Nobody's ever been there.
Yeah.
So to assume that they knew how to handle it, they didn't.
Yeah.
And I think that we have to now kind of look back at that time, because I've dealt with that too. It's like, as things start changing, it's not so much that they're changing, it's the situations are changing, and not everybody knows how to balance everything, because there's that professional, personal, work-life balance, and you don't want to leave the homies behind, but I'm also experiencing the level up.
And you gotta add that sugar element in, and all of that death and gang lights and prison shit that crept in over time. A lot of the reasons why I didn't want to go places or be around those guys is because of that element.
Yeah.
Those guys had, Snoop had all his guys from Long Beach, and Dre always surrounded himself with his people, but it was just me, and so when it started getting real heavy and felt like when you went somewhere, it was bound to be some shit that was gonna happen. They was gonna have a fight here, somebody's gonna get shot here. I just stayed at home, to save myself from being a part of any of that stuff. And that even added to sort of the despair of not being able to celebrate those moments. But that went back to the NWA stuff. I put in a lot of work on their records. And when they began to do well, I had to sit on the sideline and watch.
Yeah.
So, bro, G.O.D. has prepared me for a space that has to be, just for me. Because it's a path that I don't know too many cats that could walk, and still be here with their mind and still have a good heart and want to do good for other people and try to make a way for the youth, like what I'm doing with this school.
Yeah, I want to know more about the school.
All of that is about pouring out all of this pain in a way that these kids can understand. You talked about the accident. That's a cautionary tale. Be careful what you ask for, and be prepared for it, because my whole thing started with a prayer. I asked G.O.D. for it. That's why I go back to God so much. That whole story, after my mother told me, I'm sending you to the Army, I prayed that night. I said, I don't want to go. I want to do this. Let me do this, and I'm going to show you something special. And maybe 16 months later, I had sold 3 million records, and so that's how fast it happened. The first album cover you see is Jesus in the thing. So I was cognizant that I'm finna have to tell this story, because my album cover had God in it. You know what I mean? But show business will take you quick if you're not prepared for that success. And success for us happened like that,
And like you said, it's not something that, you necessarily prepare for. I want to go back to the school in a second, but, something that I've shared a number of times, being from Fort Worth, we're still waiting kind of for that moment, to have our moment with hip hop, right? We've had a lot of guys that are qualified and a lot of guys that have gotten close, but I always use the comparison of like, the what if scenario, right? Like, is this artist the GOAT, or is he Earl Manigault? And Earl Manigault is highly regarded as the best ball player that never made the league, right? It's a street baller from New York or wherever he was from. I believe it was New York. Earl the GOAT Manigault.
Yeah.
And just never got there. So I was like, man, do we have guys in Fort Worth that are the GOAT, or are they Earl Manigault? These guys that were on the cusp, right?
I think 6'2" is the guy in Fort Worth. There's a lot of guys from Funky Town that 6'2's whole clique, L Dog and all of those guys was great. One Good Side, and you know, it's a lot of Funky Town guys that represent. But for me, 6'2 was the guy with all the potential. He had all the tools.
All the tools, man.
To be, and some of that might be, I'm not going to even take credit for that. Because Dre wanted him.
Yeah.
Dre tried to take him, you know, away from me. I wouldn't let him take him. And so 6'2 maybe could have been way over there.
I mean, you know, in D.O.C actually ended up with Beat Club with Timbaland. I remember he was on the magazine cover whenever Timbaland rolled out Beat Club. He was on the cover with the crew, and I want to say he wrote a record for the Pussycat Dolls. That was actually one of their biggest commercial records. Yeah. You look that up. Look that up.
That's insane.
Yeah, look that up. That's an accurate 100% Fort Worth historian in me that took that and learned that. But when I use that comparison of cautionary tales, even Twisted Black, you know, Twisted Black was someone that was right there, man, at the 1 yard line, and you know, had to do some time. You know, these young guys like Go Yayo that have had opportunities to break through and be that for the new generation. You know, detour, you know, whether it be, you know, time in jail or other things that...
Thinking of the wrong shit.
Yeah, like, man.
But God say the best for last. I think it's our turn now. Now. And what X has a chance to do is change the dynamic of how we do it. Even though you talking about stuff that ain't 1,000% positive, you got kids. You're a positive guy. You're trying to do great things for the city. Make sure that you align that message when you out there in the world, when you're doing your thing. Not just about you or the gold necklaces and the diamonds and all of that, because it's all cool. You know, but if you get $1 billion and they pop you in your ass, you're just a dead man that had $1 billion, right? Yeah. So it's really about tomorrow, and you're the guy now. For whatever reason, G.O.D. said you're the man. They put you on the cover of Rolling Stone.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And so it's your opportunity. I'm not going to blow no smoke. You know what I mean? I'm gonna give it to you like a TIZ. But I ride with you. And if wherever you wanna go, I wanna go too. You know? Yeah. How big you wanna be, I wanna be with you. I wanna represent for you and with you for this city. Not just this city, that city. Yeah. Not just Dallas, but Funky Town, Fort Worth.
Love it.
Because we so much better if we together. We are the biggest and the best as long as we stay together. But if you keep that street mentality where it's so street that you can't come together, then you fucking up the game.
Well, you know, that's why I was talking about the school, you know, because to me, when I think about the school, I think about paying it forward. You know, you might not know a lot about myself, but I've done a lot of stuff back in Fort Worth, you know, really kind of made my name in talent buying, routed national tours for a very long time. I work with a lot of big artists, right? And I've played a big part in putting a lot of artists on their first stages. I've pretty much worked with a lot of these guys out here, and I'm grateful. But there came a point in time where I didn't really realize that I was being viewed locally as the next step to a lot of guys, right? Because people are always kind of seeking that, right? You know, I was going through the motions of doing public speaking engagements at elementary schools, at middle schools, at high schools, even at universities, man. And I did my toy drive every year, but at some point or another, that started feeling a little heavy even for me, right? I got a tattoo on my back that says, with great power comes with great responsibilities, because it's true.
Yeah.
And it was a reminder that I needed as well, because to your point, you know, it's a G.O.D. thing, right? And, you know, heavy is the head that wears the crown,
That's
right?
right.
But I do feel that when you're in position and you have all this experience and all this knowledge from life, and the things that you've gone through, you could see the signs when somebody's going that path, right? Call it wisdom, call it the gray hairs or whatever, right? The school you talk about is kind of putting people on a correct path, career-wise, to be able to monetize off this, but also to do the right thing, I guess. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
I want to hear you
The
speak
right
on
thing
that.
is succeed. You said folks viewed you as the next step to the next step. That next step is what? You know, like you don't need the next step. You are the step.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You don't need the machine. All these kids want to get signed to this person, signed to that, signed to this label, signed to that. You don't need any of that. You know, if you're making great music, if you are creating a movement that moves, all you need is 5,000 people. And it's got to be 4-5 million people in Dallas and Fort Worth. If you can't snatch 5,000 people out of that number, then you probably wasn't meant to get it. Yeah. You know what I mean? But if you can snatch 500 people that believe in your mission and your music and are willing to donate $200 to your cause, you just made $1 million. That's how easy it is. It's a numbers game, and the numbers are small. What the machine does is give you access to those numbers. But we are insulated, and if we build our own machine that exists here and support each other within that machine, then those millions of people, black, white, red, green, or purple, we own that part. We control that part. This is our part of the world. If we do that, starting from Big X down, then everybody can have some. And if everybody got some, then nobody got a need to be envious of what the next man got, because everybody got some.
You know, I think about the school because I feel like, man, listen, we're in a business and in a world that the one thing that I feel matters the most is information, right? People go to seminars, they buy books, they watch these YouTube videos to gain information. And these youngsters, man, I mean, for lack of better words, they lack information.
Oh, yeah.
And they lack information. And I feel, for me, the more that we're able to provide information, to provide guidance, the more that we give the next generation a better chance at winning. One thing that I wanted to ask you, though, just in terms of talent, do you still get moved when you hear a young talent that you might just come across, whether it be in person, in passing, or even on the internet through the algorithm? And do you still get moved when you hear a young talent that's undiscovered and you're like, man, this person?
Absolutely. One of the caveats of my school, and the school is called the Dreams Experience Academy, the DEA for short. You know about that? It's the good dope, not the bad dope. And so the 4 verticals that I teach from within this curricula is gaming and game design, entertainment, music, TV and film, the creator economy, Kai Sinat and all of those kids making money in this box, and AI development. Those are all the jobs of tomorrow. Business is going to follow technology. That's, we're going from the military industrial complex to financial industrial complex. It's all about the money now, right? So taking these kids through this curricula is giving the kids that come from where I come from, where you come from, access to those things that we don't get normally. You know what I mean? Because all the jobs at Disney or at Tesla or at these jobs are not going to be available for our kids because they're not getting the right education to go get them. That's the first blessing that I want to give the kids. Inside of the DEA is a for-profit business that's ran and operated by these kids. That means creative content, marketing and development, music, TV and film. That means you can ride on my back. Let me go out here and find these opportunities, these Fortune 500 companies that are making commercials to target you. Y'all want to make these, and I'm talking about the ones in Dallas and in Fort Worth. You guys are making these hundreds of millions of dollars making commercials targeting these kids. Let my kids make the commercials for you.
Yeah.
Pay them for that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And start that machine to making money. Once the machine begins to make money, the way I look at it is this. There's 4 quarters in every dollar. If you give me a kid that can make $1, 25% of that dollar goes to that kid. 25% of that dollar goes back into the school. 25% of that dollar goes into that kid's home community. And 25% of that dollar goes to that kid's home school. That gives everybody a reason to make that thing, whatever it is, win. It makes it that much easier to get to that 5,000 number. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Now we all got a reason to want that million. So let's make that 5,000 number happen for that kid. Now that kid has a sense of a being that didn't exist. Now I can take that same gangbanger and put him in that position and shoot it the same way you're shooting this.
Yeah.
And the TV show that used to be Cops,
Oh, yeah.
where all we saw was niggas falling, will turn into that. Now we see niggas' lives being changed. And it goes from kids saying, I want to be that, to I want to be that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Now you start rebuilding the community from the inside. Damn, what they gonna do is what we gonna do. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that comes from people like me and you. That comes from people like X. That comes from the community itself. And so the school is my way in. You know what I mean? That's because that's where my heart at. That's my purpose now.
Yeah. And you mentioned that, and I actually donated to the school, because you mentioned to me when we were chatting that it was really important to you where you're at with your kids. How do you have to be to be part of the school? Like, is there like?
It's 7th through 12th grade curriculum, because I feel like that's when the world coming.
Yeah.
When you hit that junior high school, that's when the gang life gonna show up. That's when the girls gonna show up. That's when you want some money. You know what I mean? Like, and most of the kids, I'll give you a stat. In the 75216 area code, that's part of Oak Cliff where I grew up, near SOC. The truancy rate is almost 47% since COVID. That means damn near half the student body said damn school. You know why? Because you took everything out that they can see their future in. If you don't dribble, or if you don't run and jump, or hit the ball or kick the ball, where's your future at? You're just sitting in there. And so you took out wood shop. You took out all the things that kids can do with their hands that don't play sports. You know what I mean? So what I'm trying to do through DEA is put something back in school with a caveat to it. Like, you want some money? I'll show you where the money at. Come on and be a part of this program. But you can't be a part of this program unless you got your ass in school. And you got to be doing the right thing in school. And if you do that, I'll show you where the money at.
I'm going to share this with you, man. There's actually, I wish I would have known about the school a few years ago. So I did a career day, and I'm not going to overshare too much here, but I did a career day at Southwest High School. And I saw they have an incredible music program built in over there in Fort Worth. And I met this young girl that, she was kind of chaperoning us around the school that day, and she was super shy, super quiet. And right as the presentation was over, her teacher, good friend of mine, he played her music. She performed, and I was blown away, so much so that I actually asked him for her mother's contact, or her parents' contact. So I contacted her mom, took her out to eat, and I immediately said, like, this kid is special. And then you know, again, without oversharing, she had a lot of stuff that she was dealing with on a personal level.
Sure.
And that made a lot of sense to me because the song that I had heard, they sent me a recording at 14 years old. She's singing Strange Fruit, right? And it was heavy.
Wow.
And so I've been mentoring her the last few years, and she hasn't been in school, but I mean, look, I put up one clip and everybody compared it to Badu. She says she's the next Badu.
See, one of my things is with this school, when I get this thing up and running, it puts me in contact with, I can touch all the kids at once because Badu and I aren't the only ones here. So it's probably plenty of them with that exceptional kind of gift. But how you gonna find them, you know? And how you gonna find them before the machine get them and break them down, you know?
No, I mean, I still mentor her to this day, but man, that's, if ever a song that I'll play for you, that's whose song I'll play for you because she's one of those, you know?
Well, you got my thing, man. Let me hear that. I'd like to hear that.
Now, for sure. Now, that's D.O.C. CARES.org. Make sure to get on the website, donate. I want to do a few quick hits before we wrap up because I know I could stay talking to you all day, man, but I'm being mindful of your time. Want to kind of get back to the music. I don't know when it was. It was sometime in the last 20 years. There was talks of an NWA reunion it was supposed to be Dre, Cube, Ren, and I want to say there was conversations of Snoop being an additional member, a new member. I think they even did a record or two, and then nothing ever happened. What happened there? Did those cuts just end up on the Detox album?
You know what? If I'm being honest, I really don't like talking about that.
Yeah.
Or any of that stuff anymore.
Yeah.
I think I'm gonna start letting that shit rest because I'm at home now. And so whatever they gonna do out there, God bless them, I hope it's great.
Well, then I got one question. Obviously, you know, me being Mexican-American, you know, one of my homies was like, dude, you gotta ask D.O.C. Was there ever any Mexican affiliates or anybody that was gonna be a Mexican member of NWA? I was like, bro, what the fuck are you talking about? He's like, there was a guy named Crazy D.
Crazy D, yeah,
Crazy
bro.
D that was Mexican.
Yeah.
I want to know, is there truth to that? Because I don't know nothing about that, you know?
Yeah, he was there before I got there. But he's a real one. And I still talk to Crazy D on
Oh, wow.
on Facebook sometimes, yeah. He's a real dude. He was a street guy. You know, he used to work with Easy doing the street stuff.
Yeah.
But he was around the studio all the time. And he was a cool dude.
Yeah, he had mentioned that to me. I was wondering, I was like, well, what the fuck? I was like, as far as like songwriting and, you know, aside from your records, obviously, you know, your records are incredible. But songs that you've helped like contribute to, that you've written, do you have a favorite?
No. My favorite song is the next one.
Oh boy, you gave me the Tom Brady answer. What's your favorite ring? The next ring, right?
Damn, did I just see, there you go. There it is right there. It's in the DNA.
No, I'm saying
and the DEA. Goddamn it.
But no, I mean, I just kind of want to get, you know, one last thing out, like, because I want to know I want to get in the mind of what I consider a genius, right? When you're writing a song, and let's just say, for example, one of the bigger records that you've written, let's just say, I don't know, maybe one of Snoop's records, right? And you're going into the cadence and you're going into the pockets, or you're talking about going into the real intricate parts of writing. What does that look like from your standpoint? I don't want you to give away all the sauce, but I just kind of want to know, like, the making of a song for you when you come in.
Bro, if you start with the beat, then the beat, you let the beat do as much of the heavy lifting as you can. You just fill in those pockets with stuff that means something. Like, everybody can rap. There's not one person on the planet that can't rap. Easy taught you that. But when you're songwriting, your mission is to touch somebody's spirit, touch their soul. That's the only way that shit is gonna last forever.
Yeah.
You can write a song and they love it for the summer, you know, because you're in the zeitgeist and this is what time it is, and but when I'm songwriting, I'm trying to write something that's gonna be here for another 40 years, you know. people still look at No One Could Do It Better as if that album stood the test of time, like it feels new now to a lot of people. I've gone places and had fathers and their sons come and want autograph stuff, and the son want to make sure that I know that his father didn't put him on the record. He found it himself and love it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So shit like that is super cool, man, and it just goes to show that the love and the energy I put into it is well deserved. You know. Now, I told you I've been making new music. I'm about 7 songs deep in this next album, calling it NWG. NWG stands for Done Without God.
I was gonna say. I knew I was gonna say. I knew what the G stood for. I was trying to forget the NW.
Yeah. But you know, I'm the kind of guy that I want to talk to everybody on the record. So it's I need a couple. I'm waiting on this one beat. I've been asking for it. I went to Africa looking for it. They ain't sent it back yet, you know. Like, I am an evil genius with this shit, bro. There's a certain feel and sound that I want that comes from Africa. Like when you're on the they call it Afrobeat. When you on the web and you see them little kids and they be dancing and you know, I love that energy. You know what I mean? I need that sound for a song. Let me put some hip hop on it and make it a hit. But I send after it, it ain't came back yet. I'm looking for that one. And you know, the kind of stuff that the young kids are doing today, not necessarily the wordplay, maybe the cadence, but the sound of the production, something that when they hear it, it'll turn them on.
Yeah.
I need one of those, you know. So I'm still building, and I haven't gotten to the AI part yet, you know.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about AI. That was one of my last questions is, you know, now you being a prolific songwriter, obviously, and being a great artist yourself, the inception of AI. What are your thoughts on these apps that are auto-generating songs and auto-generating lyrics, and just what AI technology is now with current, you know, the current state of music?
If it helped them, great. You know, I've never, you know, I don't have no competition, no, bro. I really don't. You know, so whatever works for you, go get it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But I'm not using it because I don't need it.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of misconceptions with it. I think people got to realize, like, it's just a tool.
Yeah.
And if you utilize it as a tool, you know, then, you know, if it's going to expand creativity, by all means. But if it's doing the work for you, that's different.
Well, my thing is, it's only through AI that I can reconstitute that old voice. So that's what I'm using it for, like building a large language model, using the stems from No One Could Do It Better. Then I can go get that old voice.
And then you can mirror it.
And make new music with that voice.
Yeah.
And there's a song called Lord Help Me that I built. That, man, if that old voice say that record,
Done.
man, it's over with. Like, give me the crown. Give me Biggie's crown.
You know, and I'll conclude with this. You know, I feel like with music, you know, that you mentioned that connection. There's very few people that have that connection. You know, that just, it's authenticity.
That's it.
It's that
That's
authenticity.
the word, bro.
It, absolutely. You know, that's what I feel like Tupac had, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's what I feel like Eminem has.
Absolutely.
You know, when you hear this certain level of authenticity and this certain level of vulnerability as well, because when you hear the records, that journey they put you on when you listen to the album in its entirety and in its totality, you feel like you leave the album knowing them. Like, damn, I know Eminem's mom's name, I know his girl's name, I know his daughter's name. You know, Tupac's talking about his mom. I feel like I relate to this.
Bro, that's a beautiful way to explain what real records are supposed to sound like.
Yeah.
I haven't heard anybody put it
Thank you.
quite that way, but that's exactly how it should be.
You know what? It's something that I've studied for a long time, and I tell this to people when, especially the young artists, when I'm trying to have conversations with them and we're talking about production and songwriting. I'm trying to educate these guys on like, look, man, what you're missing is the connection. You got to give them you, because they'll know when it's not you. You know, they'll know when it's not authentic, when
That's
it's not
right.
real. Like, because you know, when it's uninspired is the word, right? When you're inspired, you know, like you could feel it. I gotta feel something when I hear you. And I think that's what's missing in music. And I say this to say that's what I want to thank you for providing to music, because that's what you brought to music.
Thank you, bro. Thank
And
you
I
for
really appreciate you joining me here today. And I respect everything you've done. I don't want to make it all about this era that you did this, because I know there's more greatness ahead. And like you said, it's not a D.O.C. thing, it's a G.O.D. thing. You know, and you being from, you've made it, you know, for all of us, you know, everybody in the studio, people that I know that have been in the music scene, you've made us all proud to be from here, because you showed us that it's possible. Like, yeah, you played alongside some greats, but you also helped make those greats greats.
That's right.
You know, and so for us, it's like, see, if D.O.C. can do it, we could do it.
Facts.
And you know what? Nobody does it better.
Hey.
You know what I mean? So thank you for joining me today,
I
man.
appreciate you, man.
Thank you so much. That right there is the D.O.C. I'll make sure to log on to DOCCARES.org. Y'all donate. Man, there's a lot more to come. He got some new album, and hey, we'll be back.
Peace.